Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you my second part of covering the data sheets of the Necron Codex, the new Necrons that we just recently seen. Now, before I get started into all this, I could say something like, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You've heard all that before. This one I'm actually going to thank everyone out there, all my cronies out there in the Necron community. Today, I had some great conversations with some people who helped me understand some of the rules that maybe I had misunderstood in some things I've seen. And these are things that, like I've always said, please, in the comment section, let me know where these are. You know, there's so many rules in Warhammer. There is the rule books, the codexes, everything all over the place. And when you start reading them, sometimes you misinterpret a couple things. And I'm not perfect by no means, but I enjoy doing this and I enjoy talking about these things and presenting these things. And in this video, we're going to go into all of the infantry. But before I do that, I want to leave a little editation from my previous video where I talked about characters as well as the data sheets because of some great feedback I had from some people out there in the Necron community. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your feedback, honestly, and that's why I'm doing this. So we're going to cover a couple of things real fast. It's not very much, but there was some things I definitely made a mistake on. The first thing I wanted to cover is the Protocol of the Undying Legion. After doing a little bit of research in this, one of the things I wasn't sure about is how this would interact with Warriors per se, since this is D3. According to a couple of different channels and different things, apparently if you are resurrecting Necron Warriors, you do get the D3+3. So that's an awesome, really, really big perk that we can get out of this. A second mistake I made that I didn't notice at first was the Veil of Darkness. So the Veil of Darkness is once per battle, but you don't use it in your movement phase, as in previous games and previous iterations of this army. You in fact use it at the end of your movement phase, which tends to be kind of a new scheme and a new dynamic we're seeing for Warhammer, with stuff interacting with your opponent's turn and stuff like that, where Games Workshop said they wanted to make this game more interactive for both sides, for everybody involved in this. So that's another one there, is that the Veil, actually you start by pulling the unit off at the end of your opponent's phase turn and then dropping it down. So interesting there on how that works. The next one that I made a mistake on was actually the Catacomb Command Barge. So when I originally was talking about the Catacomb Command Barge, I was talking about how, what weapons you would need to use on this thing and how you would, how it would interact with the different weapons in the game and how tough it could be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As I roll over to it, I misread this. Each time attack targets the model, the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the model's toughness. So the only way you reduce the damage by 1 with this is if the weapon is a higher strength. So the Catacomb, still a tough unit. Give it a centripetal weave, 4 up, feel no pain. Still can be a great model if you don't have as many characters to run with, and in that sense, to be able to have the Resurrection Orb to cover more things. Still a good unit. Still very strong, still a very good unit, but it was a mistake I had made. When we get over into the characters, the true units, there's one unit that I'm just going to kind of gloss over because I want to talk about this unit by itself, just for how unbelievable it is and how the 40K community just basically told me, no, you are very, very wrong in what you think. And maybe a lot of people would have been, I think there's a lot of people out there that probably would have hoped that I was right, because the way these things work are unbelievable. So let's jump into the infantry and start talking about these guys, because now I feel there's a lot more comfort going in here. So the first and foremost, we're going to talk about the Necron Warriors. There is a lot that can be said about Necron Warriors, and honestly, all of it's good. I personally my first army is going to have 2 20-man bricks of these guys. These things are basically impossible to move. We know their stat line is gotten a little weaker. Toughness 4. They hit on 4s. Throw a character in there, they're hitting on 3s. Cool. Everything's back to where it is. With the command protocols, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest thing is their ability and how they reanimate. Each time the reanimation protocol is activated with this unit, it reanimates D6 wounds instead of D3, unless it is within range of an objective marker, in which case it's D3+3. So these guys are on an objective marker. This is going to be so difficult to remove. Remember, Chronomancer, the 5-up Feel No Pain. Orican, 4-up Invuln. Chronomancer, -1 to hit if you want to go that route. The Overlords and Lords with Resurrection Orbs. These guys are just going to not die. And I guarantee are at least going to be a staple for 1 unit. Some might run 2. When you start getting into the 3, they start getting kind of expensive because these guys are 240 points a piece, 240 points for 20, I believe. Yeah, 240 points for 20 of them. That's a little pricey, especially when you start adding all the other stuff on there. I think my unit compositions were coming around 400 for these guys. So, but at every point they're going to be worth it. I mean, it's going to get, these guys are almost to a point that it's like, if you don't wipe out the squad, then you don't wipe out the squad. Like, you almost have to take these guys out in one go, or it's going to be a no-go. Moving on to Immortals. Immortals, you know, they have the higher toughness stat line. If these guys are going to need a lot more character support. You can only take them in 10-mans. Their ability is implaceable eradication. So each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. If the target attack is an enemy unit within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the wound instead. Now, these guys have lethal hits on the Gauze, sustained hits on the Tesla. So they want more for the hit modifications and the boost to be able to get those hits. So these guys are going to benefit from a character that can give them the 5-up crits to be able to generate more shots or generate the lethal hits. I do think these guys are good. I think with a little bit of, they definitely need character support. So it's going to come down to, do you want a second Necron Warrior, or do you want a cheaper squad of Immortals? Either way are going to be strong options because these guys have some good guns, higher toughness, but these guys are a little more fragile. Being the fact that they're only a 10-man with their 3-up save, there's going to be a lot more things that are going to be able to remove them in the game, and it might be hard to get them up there. You're a vehicle. We're going to talk about you later, Mr. Canoptic Reanimator, because you are nasty. Lich Guard. Lich Guard, I absolutely love. I'm not sure if I'm going to run 1 squad or 2 squads. I do have some really cool old pariahs that I considered running because they have the glaive on those and they're old school. Definitely going to be running the shield ones because you throw a Chronomancer or Technomancer in there and you have a 4-up Invuln, a 5-up Feel No Pain. These guys are going to be tough to move. Also, whenever they are led by a noble, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Now, like I said earlier with the Catacomb where I made that mistake, this one I'm not mistaken on. This one, these guys are just -1 to wound if there is a noble in the unit. So these guys are, love these guys. I'm glad to see that they're doing well again. I'm glad to see that they're good again. Last edition, the killing power got too much and these guys just got swept off the field before they could do anything. I remember feeling it so many times where I'd have a 10-man out there, get blasted by Tau and be down to 3 and go, I'm never going to get these guys back. And even with the Resurrection Orb, some poor dice roll, they never could really cycle back into where they were supposed to be. So Lich Guard, great unit, great unit, great stats on them. 3 attacks with the sword, 2 attacks with the glaive. The sword is strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage. That's the weapon you get with the shield. The glaive is only 2 attacks, but it's strength 8, AP 3 for 2 damage. Now, there is a lot to be said. It really is going to come down to all of the stuff that you put on these guys. The 5-up Feel No Pain, Crypt Thralls, your Overlord with a Res Orb. These guys are going to be really tough to move and can just slowly lurch across the field and take advantage of I can't wait to see them out there. This is going to be one unit I'm taking a 10-man right off rip in my first list, and we'll go from there. Maybe they're not tough enough, but I think that these guys, they got the toughness. They subtract 1 from the wound roll, so they're going to be harder to even wound. And, you know, the strength 4 weapons are going to need 6s to wound these little dudes. I love it. I love it. So one thing to note about these guys, though, is they can only take 1 or of the other weapons, where we noticed earlier with the Gauze Flayers and the Gauze Reapers, where you could take, you could mix and match. Those guys you can't. All right, so now moving over into the Death Marks. So the Death Marks, just going to check real quick. Okay, good. Checking the microphones on. I had some issues the other day. Just messing with my head. So death marks. I want to try them. There's a lot of characters out there in this game right now. And with the characters being there's some characters that just absolutely can wreck your day. And if we can remove them before they become a threat, I think that there's a lot of promise then behind these units, these very, very strong sniping units. So these guys have heavy weapons that are precision. Now, you cannot join a squad to them, but with the enhancement that allows you to count as a character, you can get these guys for 2s to hit. That they sit still, they're 2s to hit. And then they can also get the better benefits of some of the stratagems if necessary. So these guys basically have the immortal stat line, except for the fact that they have that synaptic disintegrator, which is strength 5, AP 2 damage. So these guys are pretty awesome. Now, their ability, once per turn in the reinforcement step, your opponent's movement phase with an enemy unit is set up on the battlefield from reserve within 18 inches invisible this unit. This unit can shoot as if it were the shooting phase. It must target that enemy unit when doing so and can only do that if the enemy is an eligible target. That is really nice little scattered defense. Don't deep strike in because I'm going to shoot you with these guys. I got 10 of them. That's 10 shots. If you got a character in there, he's going away. And that's what I want to see with these guys. I want to see how much power they can actually have for it. These guys are infantry. They're only objective control 1. But this is kind of a nice backfield control unit that I kind of like. When we're looking at the death marks here, we're looking at 130 points for 10. So that's not too bad, all things considered, especially for the sniper profile. There's going to be some units that have other jobs in the army. Why not give them a sniper rifle? Flayed ones. So flayed ones got beat up a little bit by this, but not unplayable way. They lost their deep strike. You can't take them in 20 mans anymore. Maximum's 10. They do get to re-roll wounds because of twin linked claws, and they have sustained hit 1. These guys can lay down a lot of damage. The one thing that I don't really like about them is the kill more factor. So there's reliability behind these guys that they can hit and be able to finish off squads that have been dropped below 50%, or vehicles for that matter that are reduced down to half their wounds. So that's cool. But in some of those scenarios, is that what we're really going to need? And when you start breaking down with all the awesome units in the codex, I think these guys are going to kind of fall behind and not necessarily be the first pick choice, but I don't think they're the last pick choice either. I think this is a unit that, like, one of my buddies who I talked to, he loves these. He's been running them for a while, running them all last edition competitively. And I think that if he throws them on the table and uses them, there's still a lot of efficiency that can be received from these guys that may have been lost in some of the other units. For starters, we're talking about 140 points for the 10 man, 70 for the 5. So I think it depends. Again, it depends on your build. If you're playing an aggressive combat build where you have what was that enhancement called? The enhancement was the Sovereign of Cornell. If you have the Sovereign out there and you have the ability to give these guys the 2s to hit on that stuff, it's just so much volume of attacks. And with how much we're looking at with how everything's been reduced, they're AP 1. So then you pop the stratagem for the +1 strength, +1 AP, and then you have the Sovereign within range, so they count as having a character. Now you're looking at strength 5 and AP 2. That's going to shred through some stuff. And the re-rolling failed wounds. These guys can seriously shred, but you have to build into it. I'm going to skip the Crypt Thralls for now. Now, the Crypt Thralls, I made some mistakes on how they work in my previous video. These guys are so flippin' good. They're getting their own video, and I'm going to have that one out. When this comes out, this video will be following as well, because I want to talk about these guys in general and all the combos you can do. But basically how these guys work, for the small part of it, is you have a Cryptech, and the Cryptech attaches to the unit. These guys can attach to the unit that the Cryptech attaches to. There's a lot of rule interactions that I misread and mistaken, and we're going to talk about those guys in a later video, because these guys are amazing. These guys are unbelievable, and I'm excited to hopefully get to run them before they get nerfed into oblivion, because right now these guys are brutal. Oh, we're into Scorpack Destroyers. Okay, so a lot of people say the Scorpack Destroyer has gotten weaker. That because of the fact of the weapon profiles, reducing the number of attacks. You take a Scorpack Lord with them, they get lethal hits, and then the plasma sights that you can pop give them devastating wounds. Whirling Onslaught lets them they can never have their weapon skill characteristic. Now the kicker is you can ignore any or all modifiers that attacks weapon skill characteristic or the attack's hit roll. So with your command protocol, it gives you +1. Because it's a can effect, you can still take your +1 that you wish to have. It's the negatives that you can ignore. So these guys are basically with the Scorpack Lord are going to be hitting on 2+2 really easily. You can spend a command point when necessary to get them up to strength 8, AP3. Still not too bad there. And then they have the plasma sight that pops so they can have devastating wounds. So that 2 damage can just become devastating wounds through. Not quite as tough as they were last edition with the -1 to wound, but these do have a toughness 6. They only have a 7-inch move, which is down from their 8 from before. They are infantry, which is nice because they have all the benefits of infantry move. And once you slap that Scorpack Lord on there, again, like I said, the 7th guy, the 7th man, he will give them lethal hits. So now you're looking at the attack profile just being able to punch through with lethal hits, and the fact that all the abilities that they get will transfer over to the Scorpack Lord as well. And the Scorpack Lord, being a character leading a squad, will also have +1 to hit and be hitting on 2s. Now, with that being said, I know a lot of people are down on the Scorpacks. I'm going to run them. I think these guys are really good. I think these guys I think their job has changed. Where before they were an aggressive frontline unit that you could crash off of Veil of Darkness and do a lot of other stuff with them. I think these guys represent still a very, very solid hit from our army for a close combat unit. Now, some of the negative defactors, which my first list might not have them in there for this reason, but I'm considering them strongly. These guys need a Catacomb command barge with them. They don't have a lot of boosts to the reanimation style game, except for the basic ones and the stratagem, which might make them deteriorate faster than you would actually like. I personally think that these guys can still do the work and they can still do the job. What I'm considering is 2 Scorpack Lords, 2 Scorpack units, and a Catacomb command barge. It's quite a bit of points, but that's a lot of also reanimation effect. That now puts it at a point that if you can't take these guys out in one hit, I can keep bringing them back to full strength and keep moving with it. And I think there's a lot of play there, but I want to see some of the power level before I go fully committing into that. I'm not sure if that's going to be my first list or my second list, but these guys will be seen on the table because I love the models. I love these guys, and I do still think they have some play. One thing that's in particular, like I said, the weapons, all the weapons are the same now on them. So they're all that same profile. You can take them in 3 to 6 mans, 6 being the max. Scorpack Lord becomes number 7. All right, let's see. Now we're in our Catans, which we already talked about. I got those guys right. And like we said, the Transcendent, you can probably take this in triple weave on him right now, but that's probably not going to stick around. Just because it's kind of weird just to think about. See, Catans have never been really a unit that you could put a relic on or anything like that, so I don't really necessarily think that's going to stick, but hey, maybe. I don't know. Games Workshop there's some weird stuff, weird interactions. We'll see. For now, right now, technically, rules as written, you can. All right, my babies, Scarabs. I love these guys. I love what they did with them. I think they definitely fluffed these guys up. So first of all, this is a unit, a swarm unit with fly that has deadly demise. So when they die, you roll a dice and they can blow up and do a mortal wound. Which that's pretty cool. The self-destruct now doesn't cost you a command point to use. You still do it at the start of the fight phase before the unit attacks. So you have to lose the base before you get your attacks and before you know what's going on. And you still roll a dice. You add 1 to the result if you're hitting a vehicle, which is cool. So you don't fail against vehicles, but against infantry, you need a 2 through 5 to do D3 mortal wounds. But on the 6, you do D3+3 now. That's pretty nasty. Combined with the spider, if you have 2 spiders in a unit, you can put 2 scarabs back. You can put scarabs back for each spider that's available to them. So these guys, I mean, they are really nasty. Now, while they're objective control 0, their second ability with the swarm factor, any unit they're engagement range with, they reduce the objective control by 1. Excuse me, to a minimal of 1. Okay, so you go and hit a unit that's objective control 0, or I'm sorry, objective control 2, and it's the enemy unit within range. So all the models, yeah, models in that enemy unit. So you tag 1 with 1, that whole unit loses objective control value 1. So while these guys are a 0, they can bring someone else a 2 down to a 1 really, really easy. Still like them, still think they're really cool. Ophidians. Ophidians, toughness 5, because again, they're a little weaker than the Scorpex and their counterparts. Again, all their weapons are combined. They're strength 4, AP 2 damage now with a weapon skill 3, 5 attacks, so they got a high volume of attacks. No characters can really join them, so you're going to have to use the enhancement to be able to give these guys a +1 for being within range of a character and getting that second side character buff. On the side note, though, they have tunneling horror. So these guys can come off the battlefield at the end of your opponent's turn, just like the Veil, and be able to be replaced down 9 inches away from the enemy. 3 mana of these things. They also have the plasma sight to be able to give them the devastating wounds. Can go up to 3 to 6 man size squads. I like them. I think that they can play a very, again, like the nice thing is I don't think there's going to be one necessary build out of Necrons, but these guys can fit into quite a few builds because of the fact that they can come off the field, come back onto the field, and help you and take objectives and get into areas maybe later in the game that you're not able to. Maybe you're trying to pull a late game gambit. These guys have a lot of play in there. 3 wounds, toughness 5. I still like a unit of 3. Tomb Blades. So Tomb Blades are really interesting to me. So first of all, the minimal squad size went from 3 to 6. Okay. Now, one thing I haven't even looked at for these guys yet, because I was looking at all their upgrades, and traditionally in the past, one of the issues is, so it's 80 points, so they're like what? They're 8 fractions. They're fractions of points apiece. So 80 points for 3, 160 points for 6. So they're a little pricey, and they're definitely more in the damage area. So they have the evasion engrams, so they're always -1 to hit, which we've seen before. Then they have the warrior ability that you can give them the ability to ignore cover. You can give them a 5-up invulnerable save, or you can give them a 3-up save. So before, let's see. Any number of models can be equipped with one of the following. So you can give all of them the 5-up invul. I'm sorry, the 3-up save. So considering the fact that none of these points cost anything, basically these guys are going to have a 3-up save right off rip. There's no reason not to at all. And then you can give them the ignore cover, the 5-up invul. I think they have scout. They have a scout 9 inches. So that's pretty awesome for them being able to get that 9-inch scout move. So that's cool. They're mounted. So the only way to get a resurrection orb on them would be off Catacomb command barge. 12-inch move, toughness 5. Swishing this around in my mouth, kind of looking a bit. This one's a tough one. This one's a really tough one for me. I think that they're very expensive in points for what they do. But on the opposite side of things, if you have that Catacomb command barge, if you have the enhancement to count as character auras, if you're running Xeris, these guys would pair well with those things, even though they're more expensive. The particle beamer, which a lot of us seen last edition because it was the cheapest weapon option, has devastating wounds. You also have a lethal hit option and a sustained hit option with Tesla. The Tesla and the Gauze are both twin linked to reroll failed wounds. But again, the particle beamer has D6 shots that are devastating wounds for that mortal. So it's really, really tough to say. It's really, really tough to say. These guys are fast, 24-inch range at the max, 18 for the others. it's tough to say. I can't say if right now, I personally do not feel like I like them. But that's because of the units that I do like, that I'm looking forward to running. And I feel like I don't have 160 points to invest in the Tomb Blades. Someone else may feel differently. Someone else may be like, I own, that's it. It's only 160 points. I'm taking 3 squads of them. And I mean, I can, and if someone told me, oh, I'm running 3 squads of Tomb Blades, I wouldn't say why. I'd say, okay. And if the only question I'd ask is, you got a Catacomb command barge in there with them, right? Because that's where one definitely big thing that I feel like these guys need. Droid Praetorians. So I don't like them. I don't like them at all. I'm mad at them, actually. This is one unit that upsets me. And the reason this unit upsets me is because this is one of the, I feel like this is one of the bait and switches. When I look at this data sheet, I see that this unit could see play. You can re-roll charge rolls made for this unit, and it's eligible to declare a charge when it falls back. That's a cool ability. The issue I have is I think the majority of us that do own the Praetorians and have them built and ready probably have them with the Rod of the Covenant. Looking at this profile, I really wish I had Particle Caster. Particle Caster, the pistol, is a 12-inch range, 3 shots, ballistic skill 2, strength 5, AP 0, 1 damage, but it has devastating wounds. Where the Rod of the Covenant is only 1 shot for less ballistic skill, same strength, AP 2, and 2 damage. Personally, I feel like that's the better option. And then when you go down into their combat weapons, where you're like, okay, well, how does that do in combat? Well, the Rod's only 3 attacks, where the Void Blade that you get for taking the pistol is 4 attacks. And across the board, the stats are all the same, minus the fact that the Rod of the Covenant is 2 damage. Excuse me. Went down the wrong pipe. So when I look at that and I see this, it comes down to how much is that 2 damage going to matter? And I feel like with other units in the army, the 2 damage is not going to be as prevalent. That if I was going to run these guys, I would want that pistol. That's what I see with them. They have deep strike. They do reanimate, all that cool jazz. These guys are coming in at, Treyarch Praetorians are coming at 270 for 10. No way I'm running them. I'm sorry. If there's someone out there who disagrees and is going to run a bunch of these guys, by all means, I personally wish I had the pistols more for them. You can't join characters. So again, this is going to have to go into that whole enhancement range. But with these guys being quicker, 9-inch move, I don't necessarily know they're going to be able to stay near enough to that enhancement to always get that buff and ability. So you might be looking at the lower end of some of your stratagems. I think that this unit, because of, if you look at the fluff and the lore of what the Praetorians are, I feel like this unit should have been given the ability to always count as having a character with them. I think that that's what they should be. Now, I'm probably being over the top and complaining about that because we got a lot of awesome units in the Codex, so I can't really say, I guess it's disappointing because I don't think these guys have really ever seen the full-fledged light of day, and that pistol is really cool, and that pistol could come in very, very handy. But again, none of mine. Mine are all modeled with the Rod of the Covenant because that was the better weapon choice previously. And when I say better choice, I'll use it loosely because these guys never saw the battle. They're such cool models. I love that back piece, that boned back piece. So I wish that there was a little more to them. Wraiths. So Wraiths got a little bit of a stat chop. They are T6. They have a 9-inch move. You do have the 2 weapon choices that you can take. And you must select the weapon beforehand. So it's not like you get both of them. The Vicious Claws have 4 attacks. Weapon skill 4 because it's canoptic. That's how canoptic units, they got 4 on ballistic skill and weapon skill. Strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage. Okay, not bad. Whip Coils, 8 attacks. Weapon skill 4. Strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. So biggest difference from last edition is now we don't have like the Novak buff and Anakar and all that extra stuff to be able to get like 12, 14 attacks off these guys. So you're looking at 8. The Wraith form ability now, each time this unit ends a normal move, you can select 1 unit it moved over during that move and roll a d6 for each model in the unit. For each 4 plus that enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. Okay, so wait a minute, hold on. Select one enemy unit moved over during that move and roll a d6. So these guys now, their role has kind of changed. They have a 4-up invulnerable save and only a 9-inch move. So they can advance still normally, like they're, you know, a d6 advance. Ooh, they can fly over stuff and drop bombs, mortal wound bombs for a 4-up. I don't know. It's not what I think of when I think of Wraiths right away. But this is a new addition, a new time. So these guys, you know, you can probably get them up the field, and then they just fly over. I mean, like fly over and then back. Because each time this unit ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit moved over. So one of the tricks that bombing units, which this is kind of like a bombing unit that we used to do with these guys, like Screamers used to do this, is when you have the unit positioned and you have a move and you're able to get right in front, you move over and then move back. In doing so, you moved over the unit. So this is going to come into that whole, I would say this comes into the realm of horde play. If there is a lot of high volume units out there and we're trying to find an answer to them, Wraiths right up there with the Plasma Lancer are good units that can be able to take out these the horde and these big massive units. So the Wraiths we're looking at, Canoptic Wraiths, 220 points for 6, a little pricey. Again, that's going to depend on if we see a lot of horde in the meta. Nope, we're not talking about vehicles yet. That's going to be later on. Move through. All right. Locust Destroyers. I like these guys. I said these guys are like I feel like these guys are like a street sweeper. They just are going to pick a lane and drive. And I'm back and forth on because I feel like in my list, I'm going to run a single Locust Lord and he's going to join a unit. So do I have him join heavies or do I have him join the Locust Destroyers? These guys, Gauze Cannons, are 3 shots which have lethal hits at strength 5, AP 2 damage. Character joining them means they'll be hitting on 2s. Hardwire Destruction means they reroll hit rolls of 1. So these guys are pretty accurate. And with the Locust Heavy Destroyer leading the squad, or the Locust Destroyer leading the squad, the Lord, they will get critical hits on 5s. So these guys, and just so we can talk with the comparison for this, the Locust Heavy Destroyers, to take 3 of them is 135 points. And then for 45 points more, you can do the 6-man Locust Destroyer. So it's tough because it's like having more models means a better shot at reanimations, which I like, especially with a bunch of our buffs, and having that res orb in the squad is really nice. But as we're about to get over into the heavies, there's a lot of interesting damage output that can come from those guys based on what they do. So it's really tough for me to say. Also, the bases, anyone who's moved these things, the flying bases can get really wide and make it really tough to maneuver these guys and keep them hidden. So I'm not sure. Now, they are objective control too, which is interesting. So they're a little bit better in that aspect. I don't know. I like them. I like the models. I feel like these guys could see some play and I could do some work with them. 3 shots, it's a lot more of an opportunity at lethal hits off that. But now when we look at this math, these guys, so 2 of them would give you 6 shots, where I'm going to butcher the name, but the heavy destroyer gun that has a lot of shots is rapid fire. So if you get to 18-inch range, which these guys are 24, if you get within 18, you're getting 12 shots per guy. So those 3 guys are putting down as many shots as these guys could, but they have sustained hits. And as we're talking, we'll go right over to it. And I'm going to butcher this. Let's butcher this together. All right. An Enigmatic Exterminator. Got the second part right. So it's heavy. So if the unit sits still, they get +1 to hit. Again, if there's a Lord in there, it'll already be +1. Rapid fire 6, sustained hits 1. So every critical hit, 5 or 6, because of the Locust Lord being with them, means that these guys are going to get an extra attack, an extra hit. That's pretty freaking awesome. Strength 6, AP 1 damage isn't necessarily at bad. Also, these guys, Each time a model in this unit makes an attack with the Exterminator against an infantry unit, you can reroll wound rolls of 1. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack with the Gauss Destructor, it can, against a monster or vehicle, it can reroll wound rolls of 1. And the Gauss Destructor. So the Gauss Destructor is heavy with lethal hits. So again, 5s and 6s with the Locust Lord automatically. Now you only get 1 shot apiece. So if a 3-man squad, you're going to get 3 shots. But it is strength 14, -4, flat 6 damage. That is a shot. That is a hammer. That hits hard. I like it. I like them a lot. I think they are a great alternative option for some of the other heavier weapons to be able to have a gun that can hit a vehicle and do some damage. So I really like those guys a lot. And I think it's just tough between which is it going to be, the destroyer or the heavy destroyer, and how I want to do this. Some of them might come down to points in it, but I think that I definitely want to run at least one of those squads. And it looks like we're sliding into all the vehicles here. So it looks like we've made it through this portion of the infantry. Not as much as, what we had with the characters, because we are character based. We still have one more type of data sheet to cover, and that's vehicles. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the Crypt Thrall. So I'm going to cut this video short, guys. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to come back with a Crypt Thrall video where I'm going to talk over a lot more of what they can do and how brutal these little boys are going to be for this game. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.